That morning, no one expected a single act of defiance to change military history. What began as routine training became a moment every soldier on base would remember, and one that would test the difference between following orders and doing what's right. The sun hung low over the vast expanse of Camp Pendleton, casting long shadows across the training fields where the Pacific wind carried the faint salt of the ocean. At 0500 hours, the air was crisp, the kind that sharpened focus before the day's heat could dull it. Lieutenant Commander Elena Vasquez stood at attention in the formation, her boots planted firmly in the dew-kissed grass, uniform pressed to perfection, camouflage trousers tucked into polished combat boots, her Navy SEAL insignia gleaming subtly on her collar. Around her, the platoon assembled in precise rows, rifles slung across their chests, faces set in the disciplined mask of readiness. "Platoon, attention!" The command barked from Sergeant First Class Harlan Reyes, his voice cutting through the quiet like a blade. Feet snapped together, shoulders squared, eyes forward. Elena felt the familiar rhythm of it all, the subtle shift of weight from one foot to the other, the distant hum of a Black Hawk warming up on the helipad. This was her world, the Naval Special Warfare Group, where every movement was measured, every order absolute. As one of the few women to qualify for Bud-S and deploy with DevGru, Elena had earned her place through grit and precision, not fanfare. Her specialty was K-9 operations, a role that demanded not just tactical skill, but an unspoken pact with the animal at her side. Reyes paced the front, his gaze sweeping the ranks. Today's exercise, urban breach and clear, with integrated K-9 support. Vasquez, your team leads the entry. Remember, we move as one. No deviations. Elena nodded crisply, her hand resting lightly on the harness of her partner, Rex, a Belgian Malinois with a coat the color of desert sand, his ears pricked forward, alert to the undercurrents of human tension. At 4 years old, Rex was more than a dog. He was an extension of her instincts, trained to detect explosives, track sense through chaos, and sense fear before it rippled into action. Their bond had formed in the dim-lit kennels of Coronado, forged through endless hours of drills where commands dissolved into silent understanding. She scratched the fur behind his ear once, a fleeting gesture hidden from view, before snapping back to parade rest. The platoon broke into teams, the air filling with the low murmur of pre-mission briefs. Radios crackled to life. "All units, confirm sitrep." Elena clipped Rex's lead, feeling the steady warmth of his body against her leg as they moved toward the mock urban structure, a cluster of concrete barriers simulating a hostile compound. The scent of gun oil and wet earth rose around them, mingling with the faint metallic tang from the training munitions. Her mind ran through the op, breach the door, clear rooms, neutralize simulated threats. Routine, but in SEAL training, routine was where complacency killed. As they approached the entry point, Elena knelt to brief Rex in their private language, hand signals and whispered tones that no one else needed to understand. "Such," she murmured, the Dutch command for search. His tail gave a single, controlled wag, eyes locking onto hers with unwavering trust. That loyalty was her anchor in a career built on isolation. Men like Reyes respected her skills, but watched her every move, as if waiting for the hierarchy to reassert itself. She rose, signaling her fire team to stack up behind her. The breach charge popped with a muffled thud, smoke billowing as the door swung inward. Elena surged forward, Rex at her heel, his nose working the air. "Clear left!" she called, sweeping her M4 through the shadowed interior. The team flowed in behind, boots echoing on the concrete floor. Heart steady, breaths measured, she cleared the first room, empty crates and flickering fluorescent lights, simulating a war-torn safe house. Rex paused, sniffing intently at a corner, but Eleanor trusted his read. Nothing there. They pushed deeper, the structure's corridors narrowing like veins in a body under siege. Reyes monitored from the command post via helmet cam feed, his voice in her earpiece. Vasquez, maintain formation. K9 on point. Affirmative. Then, in the central room, a simulated command center with desks and props, disaster unfolded without warning. Private First Class Marcus Hale, a newer recruit from Elena's platoon, fumbled his sector during the clear. His boot caught on a tripwire they'd planted for realism, triggering a flashbang simulator. The device erupted in a blinding strobe and deafening crack. Far too close. Shouts erupted as the team hit the deck, but Hale didn't drop fully. Instead, he staggered forward, clutching his side where shrapnel from the casing had grazed him. Blood seeped through his uniform, dark against the camo. "Man down!" Elena barked, overriding protocol for a split second to assess. Rex whined low, pressing against her leg, sensing the shift in adrenaline. The exercise ground to a halt, instructors converging as medics were called. But Hale's injury wasn't the only fallout. In the chaos, Reyes stormed in, face thunderous. "What the hell happened, Vasquez? You were lead. Your K9 should have flagged that wire." Elena stood, shielding Hale as Corman arrived. "It was a team error, Sergeant. Hale's wire." Rex cleared the path. Her voice was level. But inside, the tension coiled. Blame in the ranks didn't distribute evenly, as the woman handler's scrutiny fell harder. Reyes's eyes narrowed, the chain of command flexing like a taut line. "Get him to medical. And Vasquez, you and that dog, report to briefing after. This isn't over." Hours later, in the sterile hum of the base hospital, Elena waited outside the treatment room, Rex at her feet. The antiseptic smell clashed with the earthier scent of his fur, still carrying traces of the field. Hale was stable, a shallow wound, stitches and observation, but the incident reports were already circulating. Whispers in the barracks spoke of protocol breaches, of how a female SEAL's soft spot for her dog might have cost the exercise. Elena stroked Rex's head, feeling the quiet rhythm of his breathing. Duty demanded she file her after-action report without deflection, but conscience tugged. Hale was green, pushed too hard, and covering for him meant risking her own record. As the doctor emerged, clipboard in hand, Eleanor rose. "How is he, sir?" "Superficial. He'll be back in a week." The doctor paused, glancing at Rex. "Your partner saved time spotting the bleed early. Good instinct." She nodded, but Rhea's words echoed. The chain loomed, unyielding. That night in her quarters, with Rex curled by her bunk, Elena reviewed the footage on her tablet. The wire was Hale's mistake, clear as day. Reporting it meant sidelining him, potentially ending his shot at qualification. Staying silent meant complicity in the lie. The base lights flickered outside, casting bars of shadow across the wall, a reminder that in this world, loyalty wasn't just to orders, but to the humans and the silent partners who stood beside you. The decision weighed heavier than any ruck, the first crack in the rigid order she'd sworn to uphold. The fluorescent lights of the base hospital buzzed overhead, casting a sterile pallor over the linoleum floors. Elena Vasquez sat on the edge of a plastic chair in the waiting area, her elbows resting on her knees, hands clasped loosely. Rex lay at her feet, his head resting on his paws, one ear twitching at the intermittent beeps from the monitors down the hall. The air carried the sharp bite of disinfectant, undercut by the faint, comforting musk of her partner's coat. It was 2200 hours now, the base settling into its nocturnal rhythm, distant footsteps echoing from patrols, the low thrum of generators feeding the life support systems. She'd filed the initial after-action report an hour ago, sticking to facts. The tripwire activation, Hale's graze, Rex's alert on the injury, no mention of whose sector it truly was. Reyes had reviewed it via secure link from his office, his response curt over the radio. "Approved for now, Vasquez, but we'll debrief full team at 0600, get some rack time." His tone had carried that undercurrent of expectation, the unspoken pressure to align the narrative with the platoon's cohesion. In DevGru, errors weren't just personal. They eroded the unit's edge, and as the handler, the one with the exotic role, Elena knew her margin for forgiveness was thinner. Rex shifted, nudging her boot with his nose, a silent check-in. She reached down, fingers tracing the ridge of his spine, feeling the steady rise and fall of his breathing. Their bond was forged in quieter moments like this, away from the drills and the scrutiny. He'd been her shadow through 3 deployments, detecting IEDs in the dust-choked alleys of Fallujah, alerting to insurgents before the first shot. But here, in the hospital's hush, his instincts picked up on her unrest, the subtle tension in her posture, the way her gaze lingered on the treatment room door. The door swung open and Corman Ramirez emerged, wiping his hands on a towel. He was a wiry man in his mid-30s, with the calm efficiency of someone who'd patched up worse in the field. Vasquez. Hale's settled. Morphine's kicking in. He'll sleep through the night. You sticking around? She stood, straightening her uniform jacket. Until the watch change, yeah. Protocol for incident oversight. Ramirez nodded, glancing at Rex. Smart. That Malinois of yours has a nose for trouble. Spotted the bleed before we even got the kit out. He paused, lowering his voice. Heard Reyes is pushing for a full inquiry. Kids got pulled from his CO back at Benning. Says it was a setup flaw. Elena's jaw tightened imperceptibly. Hale's family ties ran deep. His father was a retired colonel with connections in the Pentagon. Covering for him wasn't just loyalty. It was navigating the invisible currents of influence that swirled beneath the chain of command. We'll see what the footage shows, she replied evenly, her voice betraying none of the internal churn. As Ramirez headed back to his station, a new sound cut through the quiet, a child's cry, faint but insistent, filtering from the civilian wing adjacent to the base facility. Camp Pendleton shared its medical resources with nearby families, especially during joint exercises or community outreach. Elena's ears pricked. She'd heard similar during off-duty shifts, reminders that the base wasn't an island unto itself. Curiosity pulled her toward the sound, Rex padding silently beside her. The corridor opened into a brighter hallway, walls lined with faded posters of military family support programs. At the end, in a semi-private room, a nurse in scrubs hovered over a small bed. The child, a girl no older than 8, with dark curls matted against a pillow, writhed under thin blankets, her face flushed with fever. Monitors beeped erratically, IV lines snaking to her arm. The nurse murmured reassurances, but the girl's eyes remained squeezed shut, her cries turning to whimpers. Elena hesitated at the threshold, protocol urging her to turn back. This wasn't her lane. Canine handlers didn't cross into pediatric care. But Rex strained forward, his nose lifting to the air, a low rumble building in his throat. Not aggression, but that focused intensity she knew from the field. He was scenting something, his body language shifting from relaxed to alert, paws planted as if rooting for a hidden explosive. "Easy, boy," she whispered, kneeling to clip his lead shorter. The nurse looked up, startled, her badge reading, Leighton Maria Chen. "Ma'am, this area's restricted. Visiting hours ended at 2000. Elena flashed her ID. "Lieutenant Commander Vasquez, NS Dallos. My partner's picking up a scent. Mind if I take a read?" Chen's eyes widened, then softened with professional curiosity. "K9? We don't have narcotics or anything like that here. It's just little Sophia, acute infection, maybe sepsis. Her dad's deployed overseas, mom's with her in the family quarters." Rex pulled gently, nose questing toward the bed. Elena followed, her training kicking in. Assess, confirm, act. The girl's room smelled of illness, sweat, antibiotics, the underlying rot of unchecked bacteria. But beneath it, Rex zeroed in on the IV stand, sniffing at the tubing. Elena's pulse quickened. She'd seen him detect chemical anomalies before, off-script but accurate. "Has she been on broad spectrum for long?" Elena asked. Keeping her tone neutral, Chen checked the chart. Vancomycin started yesterday, temps spiking again, 102. 4. Docs suspect resistant strain, but cultures take time. Rex sat abruptly, his signal for confirmation. Target located. Elena's mind raced. In the field, dogs like him could sniff out infections or toxins when tech lagged. But protocol here was rigid. Medical decisions flowed through MDs, not handlers. Reporting this could overstep, invite questions about her authority, yet ignoring it meant the girl suffered longer, her small body fighting alone while her father patrolled distant sands. "Call the on-duty physician," Elena said, voice steady. "Rex is trained for biological markers. Might be a contaminant in the line." Chen hesitated, then nodded, punching a code into the wall phone. Within minutes, Dr. Elias Grant arrived, a bespectacled major in his 40s, stethoscope dangling. He eyed Elena and Rex skeptically. "This isn't a demo, Commander. What's the play?" Elena met his gaze. "Permission to demonstrate, sir. Rex has certified scent detection for pathogens, piloted in forward operating bases. If he's hitting, it's worth a flush and retest." Grant's expression hardened, the chain of command asserting itself across branches. "Appreciate the offer, but we're Navy medicine, not a kennel op. Stick to your lanes." The dismissal stung, but Elena held position. Rex's unwavering stare fixed on the IV. Sophia whimpered again, her tiny hand clutching the sheet. Duty said, "Defer." Conscience screamed, "Intervene." In that suspended moment, with the hospital's night shift humming around them, Elena weighed the ripple. One handler's push against institutional inertia, potentially saving a life or sparking a reprimand that could bench her, and Rex, from the field. As Grant turned to the chart, Elena unclipped Rex's lead just enough, whispering, "Zoic. Search." He moved forward, nose brushing the tubing, and sat firm. The doctor's brow furrowed, the first crack in his resolve. Outside, the base siren wailed a distant drill, underscoring the fragile line between orders and the human cost they guarded. Dr. Grant's hand hovered over the IV pump, his fingers drumming a measured rhythm against the plastic casing. The room's air conditioner hummed steadily, circulating the chill that raised faint gooseflesh on Elena's arms beneath her uniform sleeves. Sophia's whimpers had quieted to shallow, ragged breaths, her small chest rising and falling under the thin hospital gown. Rex remained seated, his gaze locked on the tubing, muscles taut like a spring coiled for release. The dog's certainty was a force in the confined space, unyielding against the doctor's skepticism. "Pathogen detection via canine," Grant repeated, adjusting his glasses as he scanned the chart again. His voice carried the weight of protocol, honed from years in trauma bays where hunches yielded to evidence. "I've read the studies, forward-deployed trials in Afghanistan, sent imprints for MAR-SA and such, but this is a controlled environment. Commander, one false positive, and we're chasing shadows while the real issue festers." Elena stood unmoving, her posture ramrod straight, the leash loose in her hand, but her grip firm. "Understood, sir. Rex's certification includes biological contaminants, validated by the Naval Medical Research Center. A simple flush and culture swap takes minutes. If he's wrong, no harm. If right, we catch it before it spreads." Chen lingered by the door, her eyes flicking between them, the wall clock ticking softly at 22:30 hours. The base hospital's night shift protocol was clear: minimize disruptions, defer to specialists. But Sophia's fever chart showed spikes that no antibiotic cocktail had tamed, and with her father on rotation in the Gulf, the stakes felt personal, even to outsiders like Elena. Grant exhaled, rubbing his temple. "Fine, one test. Chen, prep a new line and bag. Vasquez, keep that dog leashed and out of the way." He nodded toward the corner, where a vinyl chair sat empty beside the bed. Reluctantly, Elena complied, guiding Rex to the spot. But as Chen disconnected the IV, Rex whined, a low, insistent note that cut through the beeps of the heart monitor. His nose lifted again, straining toward the discarded tubing now coiled on the tray. The flush revealed it quickly. A cloudy residue in the line, particulate matter that shouldn't be there. Chen's gloved hands moved efficiently, swapping the setup while Grant swabbed for analysis. "Could be a batch impurity," he muttered, sealing the sample. "Or biofilm buildup. We'll rush it to the lab." He glanced at Elena, his expression shifting from dismissal to cautious respect. "Your partner's nose might have just bought us time." Sophia stirred as the fresh IV took hold, her eyelids fluttering but not opening. Elena watched from the chair, Rex settling at her feet with a contented huff, his head resting against her boot. The room's dim nightlight cast soft shadows, highlighting the girl's pale cheeks and the IV drip's steady rhythm. Protocol allowed Elena to leave now, her report filed, the incident contained, but something held her. The child's vulnerability mirrored Hale's earlier, a reminder of the lives tangled in the machinery of duty. Leaving felt like abandonment, especially with Rex's calm vigilance suggesting the threat lingered, hours blurred in the quiet vigil. At 0200, Ramirez returned with coffee from the nurse's station, black and steaming in styrofoam cups. "You don't have to stay, Vasquez. Shift change at 0400, we'll monitor." He set a cup beside her, eyeing Rex. "Though I wouldn't mind the backup. Kid's dad called in, ETA stateside in 48 hours. He's pulling strings for priority transport if it worsens." Elena sipped the bitter brew, the warmth grounding her. Appreciate it, just seeing it through. Her mind replayed the training mishap, Hale's graze, the choice to shield him. Now this, staying for a civilian dependent, crossing branches without clearance. Word would spread. Rhea's debrief loomed at dawn. And her presence here could read as dereliction, prioritizing compassion over readiness. By 0300, the lab results pinged Grant's pager, confirmed contamination, a rare bacterial overgrowth resistant to the initial dose. The new line, guided by Rex's alert, had bypassed it. Sophia's temperature dipped to 100. 8, her color improving as the monitors stabilized. Grant entered quietly, chart in hand. "You were right. We're adjusting the regimen. Narrow spectrum now, targeted. Good call." Elena nodded, suppressing the surge of relief. "Team effort, sir. Rex did the heavy lifting." He paused at the door, turning back. "Stay if you want, but log it as community liaison. Brass might ask questions. K9 in P-EDS isn't standard." His tone held a warning, the institutional line drawn clear. Innovation tolerated, but not encouraged without orders. As he left, Chen approached, adjusting the blanket over Sophia. "She's responding. Eyes might open by morning if the fever breaks fully." The nurse's voice softened, a rare crack in the professional facade. "Her mom's on her way from quarters. You two, you and the dog," gave her a fighting chance. Elena leaned forward, her hand hovering near the bedrail, not touching but close enough to feel the warmth radiating from the girl. Rex lifted his head, ears perking at a subtle shift in Sophia's breathing, a deepening, more even cadence. The hospital corridor outside carried the muffled chatter of incoming shift, boots on tile, signaling the world's resumption. But here, in this pocket of stillness, Elena's resolve hardened. Duty had pulled her into the breach, conscience kept her planted. Dawn crept through the blinds at 500, painting the room in pale gold. Reyes's debrief waited, Hale's recovery ongoing, but Elena remained, Rex's steady presence a silent testament. The moral fault line widened, obey the recall to formation or witness the breakthrough her intervention sparked. Sophia's fingers twitched, the first sign of awakening, as the base stirred to life beyond the walls. A helicopter's rotors slicing the air, orders barked in the distance. In that fragile interlude, loyalty to the unseen bonds outweighed the chain's pull, setting the stage for reckonings yet to unfold. Comment where you're watching from. I want to know how far stories of courage and integrity can reach. The first rays of dawn filtered through the half-drawn blinds, turning the hospital room into a mosaic of light and shadow. Elena Vasquez shifted in the vinyl chair, her back stiff from the night's vigil, the faint creak of the material the only sound besides the steady beep of Sophia's monitor. Rex lay curled at her feet, his flanks rising and falling in deep, untroubled sleep, but his ears flicked at every nuance, the rustle of sheets, the distant clatter of breakfast trays in the corridor. The air had warmed slightly, carrying the mingled scents of fresh coffee from the nurse's station and the lingering antiseptic tang that clung to everything. Sophia's breathing had evened out over the last hour, her fever charting a slow descent to 99. 2. Elena watched the girl's face, the flush receding from her cheeks, leaving them pale but peaceful. The new IV dripped methodically, its clear fluid a far cry from the contaminated line Rex had flagged. Elena's hand rested on the bedrail, fingers drumming a silent cadence. Her mind divided between this room and the debrief awaiting her in less than an hour. Reyes would expect her in formation, uniform crisp, report airtight. Absence here could be spun as insubordination, especially with Hale's incident still fresh in the logs. The door eased open at 5:15, and Lieutenant Chen entered with a tray, vital signs kit and a small cup of apple juice. She moved with the quiet efficiency of someone who'd pulled all-nighters before, her scrubs whispering against the floor. "Morning, Commander. You're still here. Shifts handing off. Dr. Grant's already in rounds." She checked the monitor, then Sophia's pulse, her touchlight and practiced. Vitals are stabilizing, labs confirming the pathogen match. No systemic spread yet. Elena straightened, rubbing the back of her neck to ease the knot there. Good. Any word on her dad? Transport's rerouting him through San Diego. Should land by evening. Chen set the juice on the side table, her eyes lingering on Rex. That dog's a miracle worker. I've got friends in veterinary research. They'd kill for a demo like this. Before Eleanor could respond, Sophia stirred. It was subtle at first, a twitch of her fingers against the blanket, then a soft inhale that deepened into a sigh. Her eyelids fluttered, lashes casting faint shadows, and slowly they parted. Dark brown eyes, hazy with remnants of fever, focused on the ceiling before drifting sideways. They landed on Elena, wide with the disorientation of waking in a strange place, then sharpened on Rex, who lifted his head in tandem, tail thumping once against the tile. "Mom!" Sophia's voice was a rasp, barely above a whisper, her small hand reaching out instinctively. Chen was at her side in an instant, smoothing the curls from her forehead. "Hey, sweetie, Mom's on her way. You're in the hospital, but you're okay now. This is Commander Vasquez and her friend Rex. They helped make you better." Sophia's gaze shifted to Elena, a tentative smile breaking through the fatigue. "The dog? He sniffed my arm?" Her words tumbled out, childlike curiosity piercing the exhaustion. Elena leaned forward, keeping her tone even, reassuring. "That's right. Rex has a good nose. He found something that wasn't right with your medicine, so the doctors could fix it fast." The girl's hand extended toward Rex, who rose without prompting, approaching the bed with measured steps. Elena guided him closer, allowing the gentle pat on his head. Sophia's fingers sank into his fur, and Rex leaned in, licking her palm once. A soft, affirming gesture that drew a giggle from her, weak but genuine. In that moment, the room felt less clinical. The bonds of trust bridging the gap between soldier and child. The door swung wider, admitting Dr. Grant and a cluster of nurses for morning rounds. He paused at the sight, chart in hand, his earlier skepticism replaced by a nod of acknowledgement. Awake already, that's ahead of projections. He reviewed the monitors, then addressed Elena directly. Commander, your interventions noted in the prelim report. I'll forward it to base command. Could set a precedent for K9 integration in medical response. Elena's pulse quickened, the weight of institutional eyes settling in. Precedent meant scrutiny, potential policy shifts, but also validation for roles like hers. Appreciate it, sir. Just doing what the training allows. As the team dispersed, Chen pulled Elena aside in the hallway, the corridor buzzing with the shift change, boots echoing, pages chirping. Her mum's here. Sergeant Laura Ruiz, works admin on base. She wants to thank you. Laura arrived moments later, a woman in her 30s with the same dark curls as her daughter, uniform exchanged for civilian clothes, eyes red-rimmed from worry. She clasped Elena's hand, grip firm. I don't know how to repay this. Sophia's been fighting this for days. Doctors were stumped, you and Rex. You're heroes. Elena shook her head, protocol tempering the warmth. Team effort, ma'am. Rex led the way. But word travelled fast in the close-knit world of Pendleton. By 0530, as Elena clipped Rex's lead and headed for the exit, her radio crackled to life. Vasquez, report to HQ immediately. CO's been briefed on the hospital assist. Debrief moved up. The walk to headquarters cut through the awakening base, dew evaporating from the parade grounds, the sharp scent of ocean mist mingling with diesel from idling Humvees. Soldiers saluted as she passed, murmurs rippling in her wake, whispers of the K9 handler who'd crossed into medicine, saving a dependent's life off the books. Rex trotted beside her, oblivious to the undercurrents, his nose questing at the morning air. In the briefing room, Reyes stood with Colonel Harlan Thorpe, the commanding officer, a stern figure with silver at his temples and a career etched in deployments. Hale was there too, propped on a crutch, his side bandaged, face pale but attentive. The air was thick with the aroma of fresh brewed coffee from a side pot, undercut by the polished leather of their boots. Vasquez, Thorpe began, gesturing to a chair. Sit. We've reviewed the training footage and the hospital logs. Hale's error on the wire, clear. But your cover in the report, that ends here. Integrity's the backbone of this unit. Elena met his gaze, spine straight. Understood, sir. I assessed team cohesion over immediate censure. Won't happen again. Reyes interjected, arms crossed. And the hospital? Grant's report says your dog flagged a contaminant. Unorthodox but effective. Brass is interested. Could mean joint protocols with medical. Hale shifted, wincing. Sir, it was my fault in training. Vasquez covered to give me a shot. And with the kid. I heard. If she'd followed lanes, Sophia might not have made it. Thorpe's eyes narrowed, weighing the admissions. The room fell silent, the clock on the wall ticking like a metronome. Outside, a platoon chanted cadence in the distance, the rhythm underscoring the discipline at stake. Elena felt Rex's warmth against her leg, a steady anchor as the reckoning unfolded. Not punishment, but a pivot toward accountability. Effective immediately, Thorpe said. Hale, you're on probation. Extra drills, no excuses. Vasquez, your K9 program's under review for medical crossover. Log all incidents formally from now on. This unit thrives on trust, not shadows. As they filed out, Reyes pulled Elena aside in the corridor, his voice low. You walked a line, but it paid off. The girl's recovery, its rippling up the chain, could change how we handle dependence. Elena nodded, the base stirring fully around them, choppers lifting off, the sun climbing higher. Rex's tail wagged once, sensing the shift. The moral test had yielded not just survival, but a quiet reform, her defiance forging paths where orders alone fell short. Yet the full weight lingered, the institution's gaze now fixed, demanding proof that compassion could fortify, not fracture, the ranks. The corridor outside the briefing room stretched long and unyielding, its polished tile floors reflecting the harsh overhead lights like a mirror to the base's unsparing order. Elena Vasquez walked with measured steps, Rex's leash loose in her hand. The faint click of his nails against the surface, a counterpoint to the distant cadence calls, echoing from the training fields. The air carried the sharp tang of cleaning solution, mingling with the earthy residue of dew, evaporating under the rising sun. Reyes' words hung in the air behind her, a rare concession wrapped in caution. Her actions had stirred something, a potential shift in how the unit viewed boundaries between duty and care. She nodded to a passing ensign, who saluted crisply, his eyes flicking to Rex with unspoken curiosity. Word of the hospital incident had spread like radio chatter through the ranks, handlers swapping stories in the mess hall, medics debating canine protocols over lukewarm coffee. Elena felt the weight of it, not as praise, but as the prelude to deeper scrutiny. Her career, built on precision dives and silent insertions, now intersected with civilian lives, dependents whose fragility tested the steel of military resolve. Back in her quarters by 0700, Elena secured Rex in his kennel space, a reinforced corner with fresh bedding and a water bowl that gleamed under the fluorescent strip. He settled without protest, his dark eyes following her as she reviewed the day's schedule on her tablet. Weapons quail at Zerd 900, then a joint brief with Medical Command. The screen's glow illuminated the stack of incident reports on her desk. Hale's training mishap now fully documented, his probation a quiet lesson in accountability. She'd logged the hospital assist as directed, attaching Grant's endorsement and Rex's certification packet. No shadows this time. Transparency was the new line. The knock came at 0830, sharp and formal. Eleanor opened the door to find Colonel Thorpe, flanked by a junior aide clutching a folder. His uniform was impeccable, the ribbons on his chest catching the light like polished brass. Vasquez, a word. Sir. She stepped aside, gesturing to the spare chair. Rex lifted his head from the kennel, ears perked, but remained still at her subtle hand signal. Thorpe declined the seat, standing with hands clasped behind his back. The brass reviewed your logs. DevGru's not in the habit of medical moonlighting, but results speak. Sophia Ruiz is en route to full discharge. Father's wheels down tonight. Her recovery is attributed to early detection, and your K9's role is front and center. Elena kept her expression neutral, feet planted shoulder width. Understood, sir. Rex's training filled a gap, happy to brief on protocols. He nodded, a faint line creasing his forehead, the mark of a commander balancing innovation against tradition. It's more than that. We're standing up a pilot program. Integrated K9 response for base medical emergencies. Handlers like you, cross-trained with corpsmen, starts next quarter, Pendleton-wide. You'll lead the initial cadre, train the teams, log the scents. The words landed like a confirmed sitrep, precise and altering the terrain. Elena's mind flashed to the hospital room, Sophia's eyes opening, the girl's small hand in Rex's fur. This wasn't just validation, it was reform. Her conscience-driven stand rippling into structure, fortifying the institution against its blind spots. "Honored, sir! We'll make it seamless." Thorpe's gaze softened fractionally, the human beneath the ranks surfacing. You walked a tight line, hospital over debrief, covering for Hale. Could have ended careers. Instead, it exposed weaknesses. Siloed branches, delayed responses for dependents. Your integrity's the catalyst, but remember, every step's documented now. No more grey. Affirmative. She saluted as he turned to leave. the door clicking shut behind him. Alone, Elena exhaled, the tension uncoiling like a released breath after a long dive. Rex whined softly from his kennel, sensing the shift. She unlatched the gate, and he rose to press against her leg, his warmth a reminder of the bonds that outlasted orders. By midday, the base thrummed with routine, the low roar of engines on the tarmac, the snap of flags in the ocean breeze, soldiers moving in formation toward the range. Elena joined her platoon for Qualls, her M4 steady in her grip, rounds grouping tight on target. Hale was there, crutch set aside, running drills with gritted determination. He caught her eye during a break, nodding once, a silent acknowledgement, mentorship forged in shared vulnerability. "Won't let you down again, ma'am," he said, voice low amid the chatter of magazines reloading. She returned the nod, words unnecessary. The chain of command held, but now it flexed, accommodating the human elements it protected. That evening, as the sun dipped toward the Pacific, Elena walked Rex along the perimeter trail, the path winding through scrub brush where the salt air sharpened every breath. Sophia's mother had sent a note via base comms, a photo of the girl home, smiling with a stuffed Malinois toy captioned, "Guardians watch over us." It arrived just as Elena's radio buzzed with confirmation, the pilot program's green light, funding secured, her name on the lead roster. In the quiet, with Rex's steady trot beside her, the transformation settled. What began as a defiance in training shadows and a hospital vigil had reshaped the ranks. K9 units now eyes and noses for unseen threats within the wire, loyalty extending from battlefield to bedside. Elena's path, once solitary, became a bridge, proving that moral courage, tempered by discipline, could mend the fractures in a system built to endure. The base lights flickered on as dusk fell, silhouettes of patrols against the horizon, a testament to vigilance unbroken. In the end, integrity wasn't rebellion. It was the quiet force that made orders worth following. Subscribe for more stories of loyalty, courage, and justice within the ranks. Thank you for watching the case of the woman SEAL stayed by the hospital bed until the child finally opened her eyes. See you in the next one. In the hush of a base at rest, one handler's stand echoed as legacy. Loyalty not just to command, but to the lives it safeguards, seen and unseen.